Now, I've got to say something about this tax cut that the Prime Minister today was treating like it was the big election issue now. The big election issue. This would decide the election, and by golly, those wicked Liberals, they were standing in the way. I actually think this could blow up in the Prime Minister's face, because the tax cut is so small. $5 a week, 15 months from now, that I don't think it'd take much for the Liberals to be able to find the programs to cut to make room for this tax cut, a bigger tax cut. So that there's the Prime Minister today saying, oh, the Liberals don't believe in tax cuts like this derisory one. Tomorrow, the Liberals could then, Peter Dutton has replied to the budget speech, could promise something bigger, twice as big, maybe index income tax scales, so that you don't get the bracket creep always stealing this money back. He could do that. In that case, what does the Prime Minister have left after that? It could be a disaster. The biggest own goal you might have seen for quite some time, but we shall see. All that will be revealed tomorrow, but I suspect some bad news is coming for the Labor Party. Joining me is the political panel, Cameron Milner, former Chief of Staff for Labor leader Bill Shorten, now Director of GXO Strategies, and Michael Costa, former New South Wales Labor Treasurer. Michael Costa, do you think the Albanese government has set itself up to be snookered, offering these ludicrously small tax cuts, $5 a week in 15 months' time, making tax the big issue, and now giving Peter Dutton tomorrow a big chance to say in his budget speech, I can beat that?
Well, possibly, Andrew, but let's focus on the budget for a moment there. I mean, Chalmers is fast becoming the sort of Baghdad Bob of fiscal policy here. I mean, as you rightly pointed out, we're talking about deficits for 10 years. We're talking about $1 trillion worth of debt. And, he's claiming that we've turned the corner on the economy. I heard him last night say that a number of times. We've turned the economy. I mean, what he doesn't realise is the turn he's made is a bloody U-turn right back to the Rip Van Winkle years prior to, Hawke and Keating removing all the barriers in the economy. Now, I mean, that's really got to be the focus of Dutton on these sorts of things. In terms of the tax cuts, they are pathetic. But, I don't have any confidence that Peter Dutton will come up with a proper strategy on this. As I said last week, the only strategy that's credible that will deal with the problems that we face is a pathway to tax indexation. If he comes up with, $6 or $7 or some ridiculous amount of money, it's not. He deserves to lose. He needs to come up with a pathway to tax indexation. That's the only thing that counts, and a strategy on defence, as you rightly said, and a rejection of some of these green policies, particularly this, future made in China fund that we've got looking at green hydrogen and, quantum computers that Microsoft has already way ahead of anything that Australia could do. So really, the ball is in Dutton's court, tax indexation, or else I think he'll go down.
Cameron Milner, what do you make? Do you think that the government has snookered itself with these tax cuts? So little that it's inviting, I would prefer, like Michael said, tax indexation of the tax rates to stop bracket creep, but even a $20 a week tax cut could really blow Labor out of the water now.
Oh, look, I agree with you, Andrew. And I think that, Albo's too tiny tax cut from last night was adding insult to injury for people who are suffering under the cost of living crisis that he's created. So $5 isn't going to touch the sides. It can't even buy a McHappy meal at McDonald's. So no. But tomorrow night is Peter Dutton's Crocodile Dundee moment. Which is that you call that a tax cut? This is a tax cut. I mean, this guy has got red carpet raid out in front of him now to actually do what Australians want. And I agree with Michael. Indexation of the income tax rates would actually provide lasting relief to Australians and be meaningful tax reform. And that's why Peter Dutton should do that tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
It's annoying you use that Crocodile Dundee line. I was meaning to put that in my column in the papers today, and I forgot.
You're most welcome
to. Reminded me. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. But Michael, the other thing is, what is the overall vision in this budget? I mean, I agree with you, and you agree with me. I'm starting to sound like a Jared Henderson description of ABC panel. that, yes, it should have been about making the country more resilient, given the obvious dangers the Treasurer himself had said in this speech, and it wasn't. What was the vision?
Oh, there was no vision, Andrew, and you heard what he focused on. It was on that silly, future made in Australia, which I call future made in China. I mean, green iron. What the hell is green iron? You need coking coal, as we've said on many occasions, to make iron. Hydrogen's not going to cut it. There is nothing in this budget that is a vision for anything. And let me say, it's a regressive budget in the sense that, Labor's always supported means testing. We've still got a budget that is going to give energy relief to everybody, billionaires as well as poor people. We've got that ridiculous childcare policy that goes to rich people as well. I mean, this is not a Labor budget by any stretch of the imagination. The only thing that counts here is structural reform, and this government's not capable of doing it because it's reversed, as I said, back to the Keating, Hawke Keating years. The challenge for Dutton is to come up with something like that. I don't agree that just doubling the tax cut's going to do it. He needs to come up with structural reform. If he doesn't come up, people will just, pox on both houses and vote for Albanese because he's currently there.
Oh, don't underestimate the power of a handout at all, please, Michael. You're right. Structurally, that's what he probably needs to do. But if he just wants to win, $20 a week might just be enough for him to do it. One good thing, Cameron, about a tight election is that Labor tries, just for the time of the campaign that is, to be less extreme. All bets are off once the election's over. In this case, the Prime Minister has told Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek to put a sock in it. Overruled there. He wants to save salmon farms in Tasmania's Macquarie Harbour on the west coast and save Labor seats from down there from activists wanting to shut down salmon farming that they claim is endangering a rare skate. The Greens were particularly livid today. Here they are.
On the eve of the election, have you sold out your environment credentials for a rotten, stinking extinction salmon? Extinction salmon.
Senator Hanson-Young, remove the prop from the chamber.
Now, Cameron, you're an expert on crisis management and all that kind of stuff, and politics as well. What do you think that stunt's going to backfire? Because I just look at that good salmon and I'm thinking, absolutely yum. Give me a steak from that.
I'm thinking
salmon.
dinner time.
Others will think fishing, what a great industry. Or is it, should it just be grateful Labor is learning there aren't actually many votes in radical green policies?
Well, as you say, there's obviously an election around the corner because the Liberals have actually asked for legislation to protect the salmon industry for 3 times. 3 times they've asked for it, and Albo snubbed them. But suddenly he's got 2 marginal seats in Tasmania. So for the next 33 days, he's going to be the pro-salmon guy. No, look, if he was serious about this, the way the Greens... Seriously, if he was serious about the Greens, he'd also be protecting our coal mines, our gas reserves from the lawfare that we see these green activist groups take on our resources sector with. So no, I mean, this is a fix for 33 days. I like salmon, you like salmon, so it's good for the industry. But in the end, he was brought kicking and screaming to this decision.
Mind you, it hasn't gone the whole hog. I remember then Tony Abbott, when he was in Tasmania, ate an onion to prove he was with the people. I think the least he could have done.
Very odd, true.
Anthony Albanese was stuck into some salmon. Tasmanian is yummy salmon. Michael, looking at all this, obviously I don't think anyone can call it with any certainty until after Peter Dutton's speech tomorrow. I just think this is the week that sets up the election. They'll probably be calling Sunday. The budget and the reply are really going to set it up like nothing before. How do you see the two parties? How do you see the election now shaping up?
Well, Andrew, I haven't changed my mind on this. I think it is going to be a minority Labor government. The issue for me is how many seats constitutes that minority. Do we end up with a situation where the Albanese government has got to form a coalition with the Greens to get over the line, or do we end up with some, situation where they can rely on 1 or 2 of the other independents to try and get their policies through? Look, I just don't think that Dutton has focused on the real cost of living. I mean, as I said last week, nuclear energy is great, but it's not a short-term solution. He needs to talk about gas. He needs to talk about keeping our coal-fired generators going for a reasonable amount of time. I think they're being lazy on policy, Andrew, and that's why I focus on, a pathway to tax indexation, some increase in defence spending, and doing something concrete about energy policy, not nuclear energy, two decades into the future. And I think that's where he's let himself down.
I will say this about the nuclear energy policy, that it's actually a very good way for the Liberals to say, to avoid an argument about global warming. They're saying, oh, yes, this is going to be renewable,
net zero
this is going to be emissions-friendly power, and so let's have an argument about that, which is the one they're more likely to win than one on global warming. Michael Costa, Cameron Milner, thank you very much to you both.